The Silent Observation. The crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with anticipation. Representatives from 37 advanced civilizations gathered around the holographic display showing a blue planet that had puzzled them for centuries. Earth. Commander Zylov, the Council's chief evaluator, activated the central projector. Esteemed colleagues, his voice resonated through the chamber. Today we determine whether humanity meets our standards for first contact. Ambassador Valora of the Thrixian Empire rose from her seat, her iridescent wings folding gracefully behind her. I must express my concerns, she began, her melodic voice carrying doubt. Our probes have shown a species riddled with conflict, primitive technology, and chaotic social structures. Are we certain they're ready? The hologram shifted, displaying scenes of human wars, environmental disasters, and political upheavals. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Perhaps, Councillor Catan interjected, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light. We should conduct a more direct observation before making our final judgment. After hours of debate, the Council reached a decision. A delegation would visit Earth incognito, embedding themselves within human society to assess their true potential. Valora, despite her reservations, would lead the mission. 3 weeks later, the delegation arrived on Earth, their advanced technology allowing them to assume human form. Their base of operations was established in New York City, chosen for its cultural diversity and constant activity. On their first morning, Valora walked through Central Park, observing the humans around her. She watched an elderly woman feeding pigeons, a businessman rushing to work while juggling coffee and a phone call, and children playing without a care in the world. The chaos she expected was there, but something else caught her attention. A commotion near the lake drew her closer. A child had fallen through thin ice, and without hesitation, 3 strangers dove into the freezing water. They didn't know each other, hadn't coordinated their actions, yet they worked together seamlessly to save the child. Fascinating, Valora transmitted to her team. No telepathic communication, no advanced coordination technology, yet they achieved spontaneous cooperation in crisis. Over the following weeks, the delegation's observations challenged their preconceptions. They witnessed a neighborhood rallying to rebuild after a fire, strangers forming human chains to rescue flood victims, and scientists from rival nations collaborating on medical breakthroughs. Dr. Kale, the delegation's synapsepsychologist, was particularly intrigued by humanity's creative problem-solving. He observed a group of engineers tackling an impossible deadline. They lack our computational abilities, he noted, yet they compensate with something we didn't anticipate: intuitive leaps and lateral thinking. The engineers, faced with a software bug that defied conventional debugging, gathered for what they called a brainstorming session. Kel watched in amazement as they bounced ideas off each other, making seemingly random connections until one engineer shouted, "Wait, what if we're looking at this backwards?" Within hours, they'd solved the problem by approaching it from an entirely unexpected angle. Valora found herself drawn to a small community center where people of different ages, races, and backgrounds gathered. She observed an elderly veteran teaching chess to inner-city youth, a refugee sharing her native cuisine while learning English, and teenagers organizing a fundraiser for disaster relief halfway across the world. They formed bonds across divisions that would separate most species, she reported to the council. Their capacity for empathy extends beyond their immediate tribe, or even their species. The delegation's most profound moment came during a natural disaster. A massive earthquake struck a nearby region, and the human response astounded them. Within hours, ordinary citizens organized relief efforts. People opened their homes to strangers, donated supplies they could barely afford to spare, and traveled hundreds of miles to help. Valora watched a construction worker who'd lost his job donate his last paycheck to the relief fund. When asked why, he simply said, "They need it more than I do right now." Lieutenant Zorix, the delegation's military observer, was particularly struck by human resilience during the crisis. They lack our regenerative abilities, he noted, yet they persist through injuries and exhaustion that would incapacitate most species. He documented volunteers working around the clock, medical professionals pushing past their limits, and ordinary people displaying extraordinary courage. A young nurse, after working 36 hours straight, refused to rest. There are still people who need help, she insisted. The delegation's technology specialist, Engineer Thorne, studied human innovation during the disaster response. With limited resources and primitive tools by galactic standards, humans improvised solutions that impressed even him. They created a water purification system from spare parts, he reported. They established communication networks using amateur radio when infrastructure failed. They adapt their technology in ways we never considered necessary. As weeks turned to months, the delegation's initial skepticism transformed into growing respect. They witnessed humans facing personal tragedies with dignity, celebrating small victories with joy, and maintaining hope in seemingly hopeless situations. Villora observed a cancer ward where patients supported each other through treatment. She watched artists creating beauty from tragedy, musicians bringing comfort to the grieving, and teachers inspiring the next generation despite limited resources. Their strength isn't in their technology or physical capabilities, she realized. It's in their spirit, their refusal to accept defeat, their ability to find meaning in struggle, and their capacity to hope against all odds. The delegation gathered for their preliminary assessment. The conference room fell silent as Villora presented their findings. We came expecting to find a primitive species, she began. Instead, we discovered something none of us anticipated. Humans possess qualities that transcend technological advancement. Their creativity, adaptability, empathy, and resilience represent a form of evolution we hadn't considered. Dr. Kale added, they solve problems not through superior computation, but through collaborative innovation. They overcome limitations not through physical superiority, but through determination and ingenuity. Lieutenant Zorix, once the most skeptical, spoke next. In combat simulations, they display tactical creativity that confounds our predictive models. They turn weaknesses into strengths and find victory in scenarios we deemed impossible. Engineer Thorne concluded, their technology may be primitive, but their application of it shows remarkable ingenuity. They achieve more with less than any species we've encountered. As the delegation prepared their report for the Council, they realized their mission had revealed something profound. Humanity's power didn't lie in advanced weaponry or superior technology. It resided in qualities that couldn't be measured by conventional metrics. The human spirit, creativity, compassion, and an indomitable will to persevere. Villora stood at her window, watching the city below. Humans rushed about their lives, unaware of the cosmic evaluation taking place. She saw a homeless man share his meal with a stray dog, a teenager help an elderly woman cross the street, and strangers laugh together over a shared joke. Perhaps, she thought, we've been measuring advancement by the wrong standards all along. The delegation's preliminary reports sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. For the first time in millennia, a species had challenged their understanding of what constituted true advancement. As they prepared for the next phase of evaluation, one thing became clear: humanity was far more than they appeared. The silence that followed Villora's presentation wasn't one of disappointment or dismissal. It was the silence of recognition, of a paradigm shifting, of a council beginning to understand that humanity's true power lay not in what they had achieved, but in who they were. As the first phase of observation concluded, the delegation prepared for something unprecedented. A series of tests designed not to measure humanity's weaknesses, but to fully comprehend their unique strengths. The Galactic Council was about to discover that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or military might, but the unconquerable human spirit, the test of understanding. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, their crystalline chamber humming with tension. Villora's preliminary report had sparked debates that raged for days. Some members demanded immediate contact, while others insisted on more rigorous testing. "We propose a series of challenges," announced High Counselor Nexus, his form shifting through various energy states, not to test their technology, but to understand their unique problem-solving capabilities. The Council designed 3 tests: a resource scarcity simulation, a cross-species communication challenge, and a global crisis scenario. Each would push humanity to its limits, revealing the true extent of their adaptability and cooperation. The first test began subtly. Using advanced technology, the Council created artificial shortages in several regions simultaneously. They expected panic, hoarding, and social breakdown. Instead, they witnessed something remarkable. In Mumbai, when water supplies dwindled, communities organized rationing systems within hours. Engineers retrofitted buildings with rainwater collection systems, while citizens shared resources equitably. The wealthy businessmen and the street vendors stood in the same line, waiting for their allotted share. "They're not just surviving," Dr. Kale observed. "They're innovating social structures in real time." In Sao Paulo, food shortages led to the rapid emergence of urban gardens. Rooftops, balconies, and abandoned lots transformed into green spaces. People who'd never farmed before learned from their neighbors, sharing knowledge across social and economic boundaries. Villora watched a grandmother teach young professionals how to grow vegetables in small spaces. "See how knowledge flows freely among them," she noted. "No hierarchy, no formal structure, just humans helping humans." The delegation documented similar responses worldwide. In regions facing medical supply shortages, communities created networks to share medications. Retired healthcare workers volunteered their expertise, while ordinary citizens learned basic medical skills to support their neighbors. "Their response defies our models," Engineer Thorne reported. "Instead of competing for scarce resources, they multiply them through cooperation and innovation." The second test involved introducing a complex alien language through seemingly random appearances of symbols in major cities. The Council expected confusion and fear. Instead, humanity's response amazed them. Within days, linguists, mathematicians, and ordinary citizens collaborated online to decipher the patterns. Social media platforms became impromptu research centers where theories were shared and tested. A teenager in Seoul made a breakthrough by recognizing musical patterns in the symbols. "They turned our communication challenge into a global game," Lieutenant Zorix marveled. "Millions participate, each contributing their unique perspective." The collaborative effort transcended national boundaries. Russian programmers worked with Brazilian artists. Indian mathematicians partnered with Canadian musicians. When religious leaders suggested the symbols might be divine messages, scientists respectfully integrated theological interpretations into their analysis. "They don't just solve problems," Villora realized. "They transform challenges into opportunities for connection." The final test was the most ambitious, a simulated asteroid threat requiring global cooperation to deflect. The Council made the threat appear real through careful manipulation of astronomical data. The human response exceeded all expectations. Within hours of the discovery, emergency sessions convened at the United Nations. Scientists shared data openly, militaries offered resources, and nations that had been enemies for generations worked side by side. "Look at this," Dr. Kale pointed to his monitors. "Former adversaries sharing classified technology. Competing space agencies merging operations, civilians organizing support networks." A global task force formed with remarkable speed. Engineers from different countries collaborated on deflection strategies, while artists and communicators kept the public informed and calm. Religious leaders provided spiritual support, while psychologists helped manage collective anxiety. The most surprising development came from the general population. Instead of panic, people organized vigils, support groups, and community preparedness programs. Children drew pictures of hope. Elderly shared wisdom from past crises, and musicians composed songs of unity. They faced potential extinction with dignity and determination. Zorix observed, his voice carrying newfound respect. Not one civilization in our records has responded to existential threat with such cohesion. When the solution emerged, a coordinated launch of modified missiles combined with experimental propulsion technology, it showcased humanity's ability to merge different approaches into something greater than the sum of its parts. The asteroid was deflected successfully, and the human celebration that followed moved the delegation profoundly. People celebrated not just survival, but their unity in facing the challenge. Monuments were proposed to honor international cooperation, and new treaties were signed to maintain the collaborative spirit. As the tests concluded, the delegation compiled their findings. In the privacy of their base, they discussed what they'd witnessed. Each challenge revealed layers of capability we hadn't imagined. Valora began. They don't just adapt, they transform adversity into evolution. Dr. Kale added, their emotional intelligence allows them to maintain social cohesion under extreme stress. They use empathy as a survival tool, something our models never accounted for. Engineer Thorne shared his technical analysis. Their technology may be primitive, but their application shows genius. They combine tools in ways that multiply effectiveness exponentially. Lieutenant Zorix, now humanity's strongest advocate, spoke last. We tested them for weaknesses and found strengths. We challenged their divisions and discovered their unity. We threatened their existence and witnessed their transcendence. The delegation initiated a special protocol, a cultural exchange program that would allow deeper understanding of human potential. They embedded themselves more fully in human society, participating rather than just observing. Valora joined a community disaster response team, experiencing firsthand the human capacity for selfless service. She watched volunteers risk their lives for strangers, finding joy in helping others despite personal hardship. Dr. Kale studied human creativity in crisis, documenting how limitations sparked innovation. He observed artists turning rubble into sculptures, musicians creating instruments from debris, and writers finding beauty in tragedy. Engineer Thorne worked alongside human inventors, amazed by their intuitive grasp of principles they couldn't mathematically prove. They feel their way to solutions, he reported, using instinct where we would use calculation. Lieutenant Zorix trained with emergency responders, witnessing courage that transcended physical limitations. He saw ordinary people perform extraordinary feats when protecting others, drawing strength from purpose rather than physiology. During this phase, the delegation experienced human culture more intimately. They attended weddings and funerals, festivals and protests, experiencing the full spectrum of human emotion and expression. They find meaning in everything. Valora noted after attending a memorial service. Even in loss, they create rituals that strengthen community bonds. The final crisis simulation tested humanity's response to a pandemic. The Council expected fear and isolation to fragment society. Instead, they witnessed technological innovation, social adaptation, and remarkable solidarity. Scientists shared research openly, accelerating vaccine development. Communities organized support for the vulnerable, while individuals found creative ways to maintain connection despite physical distance. They turned isolation into innovation, Dr. Kale observed. Virtual concerts, online education, digital art galleries. They refused to let physical separation diminish their humanity. As the test concluded, the delegation prepared their final report. They had come to Earth seeking weakness and found strength, looking for primitiveness and discovered sophistication of a different kind. Humanity possesses something our metrics never measured, Valora wrote. They have the ability to transcend limitations through collective will, to find unity in diversity, and to create hope in hopelessness. The council chamber fell silent as they reviewed the findings. The implications were profound. Humanity had not just passed their tests, they had redefined what the tests measured. High Counselor Nexus rose, his form stabilizing into solid light. We sought to measure their readiness for the galactic community. Instead, we must ask, are we ready for them? The silence that followed was different from before. It was the silence of humility, of recognition that perhaps the most advanced aspect of any civilization wasn't its technology, but its spirit. As the delegation prepared to reveal themselves to humanity, they understood that first contact would not be about bringing primitives into the galactic fold. It would be about welcoming a species that could teach the galaxy something new about the nature of advancement itself. The tests had ended, but the real challenge was just beginning. The Galactic Council would have to evolve its understanding of civilization, progress, and power. Humanity hadn't just proven itself worthy. It had shown the galaxy a different path forward. The Council's awakening. The Galactic Council chamber had never witnessed such heated debate. Velora stood before the assembly, her final report displayed in holographic detail above the central platform. The findings had shattered centuries of established doctrine about civilization advancement. Esteemed council members, Velora began, her voice carrying new conviction. We must reconsider our fundamental understanding of progress. Humanity has demonstrated capabilities that transcend our traditional metrics. Chancellor Zorak, representing the Mechanist Coalition, rose in opposition. They still wage wars, suffer from disease, and struggle with basic resource distribution. How can we consider them advanced? Because they transform these very challenges into catalysts for growth, Velora responded. Their conflicts, while regrettable, drive innovation in medicine, communication, and diplomacy. Their diseases inspire scientific breakthroughs that benefit entire populations. Their resource struggles foster cooperation models we've never conceived. The chamber erupted in discussion. Ancient protocols dictated that only species meeting strict technological benchmarks could join the galactic community. Humanity fell short in every traditional category. Yet they excelled in areas the Council had never thought to measure. High Counselor Nexus called for order. Perhaps a final demonstration is required. Let us witness firsthand what Ambassador Velora describes. The Council agreed to an unprecedented action. They would reveal themselves to humanity and present a final challenge. The test would determine not just humanity's worthiness, but the Council's own capacity to evolve. Velora returned to Earth with a delegation of Council observers. They chose the United Nations as their reveal point, materializing their ship above the East River in full view of the world's representatives. The human response was remarkable. Instead of panic, there was organized curiosity. Military forces maintained defensive postures but didn't fire. Scientists began immediate analysis while diplomats prepared communication protocols. Media worldwide coordinated to prevent misinformation and panic. Notice their layered response. Velora pointed out to the observers. Caution balanced with openness, preparation without aggression. The Secretary General, a seasoned diplomat named Elena Martinez, addressed the alien vessel. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to Earth. We've long wondered if we were alone in the universe. Today we have our answer. The delegation revealed themselves, explaining their evaluation process and the tests humanity had unknowingly passed. They presented their final challenge, a complex ecological crisis threatening a distant inhabited world. The problem required solutions beyond current galactic knowledge. We seek your unique perspective, Velora explained. Your solutions to this crisis will determine your place in the galactic community. The challenge involved a planet where technological advancement had created cascading environmental failures. Traditional galactic approaches had failed because they addressed symptoms rather than root causes. Humanity's response team included not just scientists and engineers, but philosophers, artists, indigenous leaders, and children. This unconventional assembly puzzled the Council observers. Why include those without technical expertise? Chancellor Zorak questioned. Because wisdom isn't confined to laboratories. Dr. Sarah Chen, the team leader, responded. Every perspective holds potential insight. The human team spent days studying the problem, approaching it from angles the Council had never considered. They examined not just the technical failures but the cultural patterns that led to them. An indigenous elder from the Amazon suggested looking at the planet's original balance before technological intervention. An artist visualized the problem as a symphony out of harmony, inspiring engineers to think about resonance patterns. A child asked why the planet's inhabitants had stopped listening to their world, sparking discussions about sensory technology that could reconnect the population with their environment. The solution that emerged was revolutionary. Instead of imposing external fixes, humans proposed helping the planet's inhabitants rediscover their connection to their world. They designed biotechnology that enhanced natural awareness, created art that celebrated ecological harmony, and developed economic systems that rewarded environmental stewardship. They're not solving the problem, observer Tharn noted with surprise. They're transforming the civilization's relationship with their world. The Council watched as humanity's solution was implemented through simulation. Within projected decades, the crisis resolved not through force or advanced technology, but through fundamental changes in how the civilization perceived and interacted with their environment. Chancellor Zorak stood in stunned silence. They addressed the cause, not just the effect. They healed the relationship, not just the symptoms. The council chamber reconvened for the final vote. The holographic displays showed humanity's journey, their resilience through adversity, their creativity in crisis, their unity in diversity, and their unique approach to problem-solving. High Counselor Nexus addressed the assembly. We face a decision that will reshape our understanding of advancement. Humanity challenges our definitions not because they've surpassed our technology, but because they've shown us dimensions of progress we never considered. Speaker after speaker rose, sharing observations that defied traditional categorization. Humanity's emotional intelligence, their adaptive creativity, their collaborative instincts, and their ability to find meaning in struggle, all suggested a form of advancement the Council's metrics had never measured. They turn weakness into strength, noted the crystalline ambassador. They transform conflict into cooperation. They find opportunity in crisis. Perhaps we must ask not if they're advanced enough for us, but if we're wise enough to recognize their form of advancement. The vote was called. For the first time in recorded history, the Council voted unanimously to admit a species that didn't meet traditional technological criteria. But they did something more. They voted to revise their fundamental understanding of what constituted advanced civilization. The announcement to humanity came at dawn, broadcast simultaneously across all communication channels. Valora stood before the United Nations, the full Council Assembly visible behind her in holographic display. People of Earth, she began, you have shown us that advancement cannot be measured solely in technological achievement. Your species possesses qualities that represent a different kind of evolution, one of spirit, creativity, and collective potential. We invite you to join the galactic community not as students, but as teachers. You will help us understand dimensions of progress we've overlooked for millennia. The human response reflected their unique nature. There was celebration, but also immediate organization. Scientists began collaborating with alien counterparts. Artists started creating works inspired by first contact. Philosophers engaged in dialogues about the nature of consciousness and civilization. Children around the world drew pictures of humans and aliens working together. Religious leaders found common ground in discussions of universal spirituality. Even skeptics contributed valuable perspectives on maintaining human identity while joining a larger community. Within months, humanity had established exchange programs, collaborative research initiatives, and cultural sharing platforms. They approached galactic integration not as subordinates seeking advancement, but as equals offering their unique gifts. The transformation went both ways. Alien species began incorporating human approaches to problem-solving. The concept of turning limitations into advantages spread throughout the galaxy. Art, music, and literature from Earth became prized for their emotional depth and creative innovation. The Galactic Council established a new measurement system for civilization advancement, one that included factors like adaptability, empathy, creative problem-solving, and spiritual resilience. Humanity scored highest in these new categories. validating the wisdom of their inclusion. As the first year of contact concluded, Valora reflected on the journey. She stood in the new Interspecies Cultural Center in New York, watching human and alien children play together, their laughter needing no translation. "We came to evaluate them," she told Dr. Kale, "but they ended up teaching us about ourselves." The Council's awakening had led to a renaissance across the galaxy. Species that had stagnated in technological advancement found new paths forward through human-inspired approaches. Conflicts that had lasted centuries found resolution through Earth's models of reconciliation and creative compromise. High Counselor Nexus addressed the expanded council, now including human representatives. "We sought to measure humanity's power through our limited understanding. In their wisdom, they showed us that true power lies not in domination or technological supremacy, but in the ability to transform, adapt, unite, and transcend." The talks had indeed ended in silence, not the silence of defeat or dismissal, but the profound quiet of recognition. The Council had realized that humanity's true power lay in qualities that couldn't be quantified, measured, or replicated through technology alone. As Earth took its place among the stars, it brought gifts more valuable than any technology: the indomitable human spirit, the power of diversity, the strength of unity, and the endless capacity for hope and renewal. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed. In trying to evaluate humanity, the Galactic Council had discovered something far more important: a new understanding of what it truly meant to be advanced. The story of humanity's entrance into the galactic community became legend, not as a tale of technological achievement, but as a reminder that sometimes the most profound power lies in the very qualities that make us most human.